Hello and welcome to Living in Chicago, the podcast where I get to interview real Chicagoans about the neighborhoods that they live, work, and play in. My name is Jake Lyons. I am your host, and in this episode, I interview Becca Sutter, who is the owner of Rebecca's Confections, a very local small business that specializes in all kinds of tasty treats, ranging from cookies, brownies, jams, butters, cakes, and just anything that you can think of that's kind of within that realm of food. She has been a pastry chef for many, many years in all kinds of renowned places all throughout the city. She's also been a resident of different areas in the city. She's bounced around a little bit. And at this point now, she is a resident of the Roscoe Village neighborhood where she's been for a solid couple years and has a lot to say about it. And if you are unfamiliar with Roscoe Village, it is a neighborhood that is under the umbrella of the North Center community area. So you have like Lincoln Square to the north, to the east, you have Lakeview. You have Lincoln Park is just to the south, and some places like Westtown, Bucktown. That's just to the sort of southwest of that. It's pretty well located in terms of that. A lot of good restaurants, a lot of interesting things to do. It's a little sleepier maybe than a lot of other neighborhoods that you might know in Chicago off the top of your head, but there's definitely it's definitely not lacking for things to do and reasons to live there, which we will be exploring in depth with Becca. And in fact, I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and get right into the interview so that we can hear from Becca Suter about what it's like to live in the Roscoe Village neighborhood of Chicago. All right, joined here today by Rebecca Suter. She is a resident of the Roscoe Village neighborhood, which is kind of under the umbrella of North Center, which we would have just went over. And she is the owner of Rebecca's Confections, which is how would you say it? A cottage? What's the way that is?
Cottage bakery, yeah. That just means
Cottage bakery.
it's a home-based business, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so she can have some interesting story to tell about all the work she had to do to even get that qualification, which is a fairly new thing by my understanding that you can even, legally do. But
Yeah.
yeah, so she makes all kinds of cookies and jams and baked goods and things like that. You can find her in all kinds of markets and farmers markets and things like that all over the city. And also is a dog walker, dog lover. So, hey,
That's
anybody in the Roscoe Village area who needs a good, reliable veteran dog walker, maybe we can get into a little bit of that too. But hey, that's enough of that for now. Hey, Becca, how are you? How's it going?
I am good. It was speaking of dogs, it is negative whatever disgusting outside, and I just got in from carrying some dogs outside to go to the bathroom, which was my life today, and making there's some bread out here in the kitchen. I'm trying some new recipes over the winter while it's a little slower, so getting some
Mm-hmm.
new stuff out there. We'll see.
Let's give the audience a preview. What's literally cooking back there?
I want to try some new kinds of bread. I've been doing lots of sourdough. I started during the pandemic, as everyone did, right? He's almost 4 now, I guess, which is bizarre. Like, that was not like 4 years ago, right? But yeah.
Yeah, see,
So,
but it really was. It really was. That's like a whole
I
tenure
know.
of like being in high school or college ago was somehow the that's always how I think of time for some reason is like 4 year increments of like that's how long high school was, that's how long college is for a lot of people,
Yeah,
whatever. Like I
yeah,
don't know, for some reason I think of things in terms of like 4 year increments. And yeah, that's just it is wild that the whole COVID era, the 2020s are already this old, but here we are.
yeah. So Dwight's still going strong, but I was trying some brioche. Once I get the recipe down, I'm gonna kind of play with it a little bit and see how I can possibly like bake some jam inside of the brioche and do like little buns or something, maybe like some
Hmm.
vodka. And just I want to find more ways to get jam in some pastries because I made Pop Tarts over the summer for farmers markets, and those were super popular when they're filled with my
I bet.
jam. So I'm gonna try to expand a little bit, figure that out. So
Wow, cool.
it was a good day for just having the oven on yesterday. So I figured why not?
So it's like instead of jelly filled donuts, it's jam filled bread. But
Yeah, yeah.
so you still
Just a
get a
little
little bit of that.
portion. Yeah. I'm
Hmm.
thinking like little buns, maybe like little 4 ounce, like a few bites. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had the business for, just this 3 or 4 year period, but you've been a pastry chef for much longer, right? You've been all
Yeah.
over the city doing different things.
Yeah, I moved to Chicago in 2005, so that was a long time ago.
Oh, wow. That
Yeah,
was a long
um,
time ago now.
Yeah, actually, now I've lived here longer than I lived where I grew up. So that's
Mm,
also like measuring in decades once again.
huh.
But yeah, I moved here in 2005 to go to culinary school. At the time, there wasn't like pastry like degrees. And so I wanted to get like an associate's degree at least. And so I did that and then ended up just in a pastry department of a catering company after culinary school
Mhm.
and kind of just took other pretty deliberately took some other jobs that weren't catering. Like I really liked that, but I wanted to be well-rounded and kind of be able to try lots of different stuff, really see where my strengths were in the industry. And so yeah, started out in catering and then like pastry chef at some restaurants. I worked overnight bread baker and like hotels, worked at a small like Filipino bakery, which was really interesting for like flavor combinations that like
Mm.
I wasn't used to. What else? Yeah, all sorts of like cafes. I worked for a marshmallow company, all sorts of stuff. So I felt
Mhm.
like I was pretty well rounded to be able to have my own business basically.
Yeah.
So we were talking that cottage food is what it's called when you have like a home-based food business anyhow. And Chicago had some of the most restrictive laws in the nation, actually. It just became legal. Well, it's January now, so 2 years, 2 years ago it became legal. And so I quit my job and took some classes through Rogers Park Business Alliance. They have a program called Grow that I've actually recommended to a few other people. That it's the one I did was 10 weeks, and basically you just I did online because pandemic, but I think they do in person now too. I'm not quite sure. But they have 10 different sessions for it's 2 hours a night, and then you have 1 hour of like a specialist comes in, and so that will be maybe like a lawyer, maybe a tax professional, kind of, a actual like a writer, how to talk about your business and just give like a really quick rundown of like the top three things you need to know about that topic if you're just starting out,
Mm.
right? And then an hour of like writing business plans and kind of just talking to other people, figuring, what are the questions that you have that we might have resources to give you. And so that was super helpful to just get all the things like on your radar at least. Like I might not have the answers, but I know that I need to figure them out. So I would recommend that to anyone just starting out. So I did that and then I like filed for the LLC and got going from there. The paperwork didn't exist actually. When the law got passed, that was like as of January 1st, but the paperwork
Mhm.
didn't exist for a few more months. So I was one of the first people, I think, to apply because I was like waiting for that to come out. And then yeah, farmers markets are had some of them like with all the paperwork because we don't have a business license, we have a registration, so that can complicate some things with pop-up markets and everything. And just figuring out exactly where you can fit in was a little difficult the first year. And as it became more popular, or as like markets had time to adjust to that, right? Because they didn't know what the paperwork was going to be. So, like, for that first year, they didn't have a lot of like legislation about it, right? It was new.
Mhm.
So, I feel like it's becoming a little bit easier the second year because people are a little bit more used to it, or you kind of know what questions to ask for sure. But yeah, it's nice to not have the overhead cost of like renting a shared kitchen space or having to. I mean, I still have to plan, but not having like very scheduled, like, okay, well, these are the 2 hours that I have. I can kind of be like, okay, like it's going well. I want to do more. It's not like so scheduled, which is nice. So,
Right. Yeah, that's cool, and that's awesome that you're like a pioneer in this space, like, that you're that at the forefront of it. That because this is something that you've been wanting to do on, like a legal level for a while, and yeah, so that's cool
yeah,
that you were in the know enough to be one of the first people.
yeah. I've always been like making stuff for people,
Hmm.
and everyone's like, oh, when are you going to open your own place? And I'd kind of deliberately worked at some smaller places, smaller bakeries and cafes and things to just see, okay, well, what is it like when, you have this small bakery or whatever? And the people who own it are never the ones actually doing the baking, and not in a bad way. Like they don't have time because your internet went out or someone lost their keys or this or that, right? Like they're business owners, not necessarily bakers. And I don't really want to be a business owner per se. Like
Hmm.
that's not really the goal here. The goal is to be able to be a baker. And so in my scenario that kind of works, but I think as soon as you open a storefront that kind of goes out the window, right?
Yeah.
Necessarily. And so it's like I don't want to do that. I don't really care if, the espresso machine's broken. I need to go fix that. And then someone needs the Wi-Fi password. Like I don't want to do that every day. That doesn't sound nice.
Hmm.
And so I was always joking with people, and I was like, "Oh yeah, when I can do it at home by myself, then I'll do it." And then, 10 years later, Chicago's like, "Okay, yeah." So here I am.
In fact, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. Well, all right. Guess I need to then. I've been saying this forever.
Yeah, so it is nice because I did have after, 18 years or whatever, I have a decent collection of recipes of ideas and stuff, and so there's
Right.
no shortage of ideas to get things out there. It's just there are restrictions on what you can make, obviously. Like you can't have people aren't, they're not going to let you be at a farmer's market making whatever you want that's possibly going to make people sick. So, baked
Hmm.
goods are a safe bet. So you have to turn in your menu ahead of time to the city, and then once those things are
Hmm.
approved, you can pull from there. So I just turned in like anything that I knew how to make that would fit under their guidelines. It's on in theory on my menu, but then I have a large list of things to pull from if I want to change stuff up.
I I imagine once you start getting into like meat and cheese and stuff like that, that's
Yeah.
probably a bit of a different
Yeah.
category. Not,
You can't do
yeah,
that for cottage. So there's only it's a smaller window of things that you're allowed to make, but I
that
have
makes sense though.
yeah. Yeah, it all
Yeah.
tracks. And I'm glad that they're doing it. I would go to farmers
Hmm.
markets in their cities and you would see, all this other stuff, people able to share like what they can do. And it's like, oh man, because like you could do it in the suburbs too. It was just Chicago city limits. So
Okay.
yeah. And so it was just like, oh man, like so close
Yeah.
and yet so far,
Did you
So
ever did
yeah,
you ever
yeah.
consider moving? Sorry to interrupt. Did you ever consider moving to a suburb so that you could do it earlier before you knew that you could, that they were opening it up in Chicago?
No, basically all the jobs that I had had were, in the city, and there's maybe some suburbs I would go to, but for the most part, I like to walk places. I'll
Hmm.
bike. Obviously, I have markets, I have to have a car, but, we live in Roscoe Village, we can walk basically anywhere we want. So I really value that. And so there's not a lot of other suburbs I think that would hit the mark for that.
Right. Yeah. Maybe Evanston or like
Oak
Oak
Park.
Park, something,
Yeah.
one of the ones that's like along the CTA. So you still kind of feel like it's city, but even
Right.
though, technically it's not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What part of Ohio are you from?
I am from a very small town called Shelby, and I like to tell people that it's 45 minutes south of Cedar Point.
Huh?
If you're a roller coaster person, then get off the same exit on 8090 and go down, and that's where I'm from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you take a wrong turn when you get off of 80
Yeah.
and go 45 minutes and you'll be okay. That's descriptive enough. I do love Cedar Point and the once or twice I've been there, so that helps. Cool.
Yeah.
So what about Chicago made you why it's Chicago? I mean, besides I would imagine like Cleveland probably has culinary schools and places in Pennsylvania and whatnot. Like why to
Um,
jump over to Chicago?
I wanted to just get out of Ohio.
Yeah.
Kind of I felt like high school was high school and I wanted to just do something else. And a lot of people stay in state. Ohio has like a ton of colleges, so and a lot of good ones too. So a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people
Oh yeah.
stay in state, and I kind of just really wanted to, I felt like it would kind of be more of the same, and I didn't want to do that. And also just, when I was doing an associate's degree, that is very much like these are people you're making connections with that maybe you're going to work with or whatever. And Chicago's such a good food city that, I felt like I should make those connections in a place that I would want to stay instead of like, okay, well, I did all these things over here, but that's not really where I want to end up.
Mhm.
It is driving distance. Like 6 hours, you can do it in a
Mhm.
weekend.
Yeah. Right on
Um,
the edge of driving distance,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, the posters behind me, these are actually an Ohio brewery land grant there. And
Okay.
I'm actually wearing a Blue Jackets sweater, you can't see, but
Right on.
I still go back to Columbus and hang out, but I feel like I just needed a fresh start and
Hmm.
might as well put down roots somewhere that was going to be, you know, you can find any kind of food here in Chicago. If I wanted to
Hmm.
specialize in something, I was going to find it here. And yeah, I felt like it was a great choice. I pretty much moved and never considered leaving. So
Nice. Yeah, I guess I imagine especially in that kind of like 2004, 2005 window when you would have been making that decision for yourself, like, there's probably people listening to this now who would say like, "No, wait, Cleveland? Like Cleveland's actually pretty cool now. You don't even know. Like we've got all kinds of restaurants and it's, a good
now,
place to
yeah.
live or whatever." But it's like, yeah, we're talking 20 years ago. It probably wasn't,
That you
Or
had Great Lakes
insert
Brewing.
any other city. Huh.
Right, yeah. Great Lakes Brewing, real good food there, right, and you can get if you eat there, you can get the trolley to a Guardians game. They have a free trolley there and really good food. So now there's stuff, yeah. At the time, not really. And also, the timing of that, my backup career, like what I would have done if I wasn't going to go into a creative or as creative of a career was I ended up getting a scholarship to Ohio State for journalism. But, you know, that means that everyone that I graduated high school with was then getting out of college in, 2009 with all this debt and not a great economy.
Uh-huh.
I'd already had a job by then and kind of was settled a little bit, and so I was in catering and we got, like, slower when that went down, but I didn't you know, I was fine, everyone else is, like, mildly panicking because now they're trying to be adults for the first time by themselves, and there's no jobs. They have all this debt after, 6 month you're 6 months
Hmm.
away, and then it's like, "What are we doing here?" And I was like, "Kinda glad I'm not in that boat," and trying to figure that out, so I feel like I lucked out, but
Yeah. You were graduating high school, reading all the financials, like, "I'm reading the tea leaves here. I don't really like where this housing market's going in the next 3 to 4 years. I think y'all are gonna be screwed. I'm just gonna go learn how to cook pastries and I'll be fine."
I wish I could say that was it. I look real smart now, but I was just like, I don't wanna do this. No, we're gonna go to Chicago and just do my own thing, and it worked out. So
Yeah.
I'll take some credit, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, so when you were in culinary school in Chicago, did you find that to be a common story, people coming from all over the state, the country, the world to study in Chicago? I mean, is that I know Chicago's a renowned food city, but is that true on sort of like the educational level as well? Like people really come here for that?
Yeah, that was like I got here, right after Katrina, so there were actually a decent amount of people who just came up here because
Hmm.
I think there was, like, 3 or 4 people in like, 101 class that literally just relocated because of Katrina. But yeah, there were a lot of Midwesterners, and then yeah, yeah, I feel like there was a good mix, and I feel like that was also kind of a weird time. I don't know exactly when, like, kind of the boom of, like, cooking shows started, but there were a
Mm.
few people in my first few classes that were probably in their 30s and had had jobs in the industry already and were getting their careers. They were kinda looking for their next steps, and so they came to some of the 101 classes. That's where you start, and ended up dropping school as a whole because some of the chefs took them aside and were like, "Look, you don't need to be doing this. You already are in these hotels or you already have these connections. Yeah, like, you could do this and you would have that on your resume as, like, a line item, right? But, you're gonna get those skills by working and you're gonna get paid for it. This isn't really you don't need to be doing this. I'm not saying I don't want you here, but I think a lot of people saw, like, TV shows or whatever and were like, "Oh, this is a thing I have to do to be in the industry," and it's a good starting point, but it's also not necessarily true. Like, if you're
Hmm.
gonna, like, you know, go into a kitchen and not just see it as just a job and really ask the people around you, like, "Hey, what's this? Why is this?" And start learning, like, I don't think it's really necessary. A lot of
To
places
go to
aren't gonna
culinary school?
Yeah, a lot of places aren't gonna ask you, your credentials or, like, your they're gonna wanna see what you can do. They're not gonna necessarily be like, "Oh, you don't have this degree," um,
Mhm.
the way that some other careers do. And so
Hmm.
if you know the stuff and you can, if you're if you're good at the job, that
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need it. I think at least the one I went to was definitely tailored towards younger people who were trying to get their foot in the door, which is what I needed. But yeah, I would say it skewed younger for sure. And it was always actually kind of fun because anyone who worked in the building got free classes. Like we didn't have our own building; it was like a few floors of a building in the loop. And so you would always have a few people who were like our security guard or like whatever who was like, I'll take this like culinary class, which was always fun. But yeah, I think it was good for me, but I don't know that, if you're already in the industry and you already kind of have those connections, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it to people because
Hmm.
that's kind of what you're trying to do in my opinion is just get those
Yeah.
connections, get in the door.
Yeah, maybe it's a separating factor if you're on, like, the highest levels, like, competing for, like, top chef jobs in high-end restaurants and things, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe even not then. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just throwing it out there. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What made you go into pastries specifically? Did you always know that you were going to do that? Because I mean, I feel like a fun fact about you is that you don't actually like sweet things. So,
Yeah, I don't really. I was really fun for like, 3 weeks and then I was really over it. I was like, okay, I get it, whatever. Yeah, I do make pastries, but I like to make them. I feel like the if I'm gonna eat a pastry, it needs to have flavor besides sweetness. And so kind of what I go for with like the jams and anything, but the jams especially, they're sweetened with maple syrup or honey because that's gonna lend itself an actual flavor instead of like, oh, this is like sugar and some blueberries. You can
hmm
use it as a flavor component. I think that, when you're putting something in a recipe that it should have, you know, a lot of function. And I
yeah,
yeah, which has been interesting actually, just because then like the viscosity is different and like honey is perceived sweeter than other things, so then you usually need to use less of it and kind of just figuring all those things out. But yeah, I don't really eat candy. I will get pastries other places because things are always better. First of all, things are always better when you don't have to make them. Like people
hmm
are like, "Oh, I don't want to cook for you. You like know how to cook." And I'm like, "No, you get like a plus 10 if I don't have to be involved in any way, shape, or form." Like
hmm
if this just appears in front of me, I already love it. Like, yeah. But yeah, I will try the things that I make. I'll have a bite and then I'll be like, "Okay, we're done." You know.
yeah. Passes the test enough. You know what you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
right on. So when you first moved here, you moved, what's this? I see the list is just pretty much in order. So you lived in the Loop, Andersonville, Rogers Park, and now Roscoe Village, North Center area.
Yeah. Yeah. We moved actually just down Hoyne. I was in North Center for I think 4 years before we moved here. Yeah. I lived in the Loop the first year that I was here. That was where like our student housing was. And that was
Yeah.
nice because I could walk wherever I needed to go. This was before smartphones existed. And so I had to figure out just how to get places and, there was no like bus tracking per se, you kind of had to
Yeah, definitely not.
there was no
That
Uber,
was
right?
you're printing out MapQuest at that point
Legit.
still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I learned how to walk at the light pace downtown 'cause that's how you get places quickly, right? Like you're only stopping if you make a turn, and just had to get my bearings kind of quick because yeah, I don't know how I did that. Like I think about that now and I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm like, wait, these things like didn't exist. They existed like a few years after, but I mean, I think iPhones were like 2008, 7, 8.
That sounds right. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So like yeah, I was yeah, with my like cell phone that you like add minutes to, like
hmm
just figuring out life. That was that was probably good that I could walk anywhere I actually needed to be.
Yeah. Was it Columbia? Is that the school that you were in?
I went to so in Chicago they had to like rename it. It was the Illinois Institute of Art Chicago. The chain of schools is
Oh.
called the Art Institute of and then city name, but they couldn't do that here because there's the actual Art Institute museum with the lions and everything, so people would
hmm
get confused or copyright whatever, I don't know. And I don't think it exists anymore. I think it's like Chick-fil-A. Um yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
um
That'll work.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, we were right in the Loop, so it was real easy to get there for that. And it's also insane because I some of my friends live that I went to school with and now have moved other states and everything will come back and we'll see like because we were in Presidential Towers, so it was like right across from Ogilvy on Madison.
Okay.
And like the West Loop, like obviously it existed, but like not like it does now. Like, there's all this stuff to do now. And so now that would be like such a cooler area to live in. But when we lived there, we were 18. We couldn't even go, you couldn't even get into a lot of places, right? And so that's actually my favorite restaurant. People ask me, and it's Iguana Cafe over. I guess now it's West Loop, but I guess then you would have said Greektown maybe
Mm-hmm.
off of like Halstead, Grand Milwaukee, that 6-way where the blue line is.
That's your favorite restaurant in the city?
That was the only place we could go
So it's
unless we
like
were gonna.
nostalgic for you.
Yeah, yeah, and they finally raised their prices. It was, like, cheap. You could get this huge bowl full of carbonara pasta, so good, and I think now it's normal price. I mean, it's still not expensive, it's still normal prices, but for a while, it was, like, a great deal. I'm like, "How raise your prices, people, what are you doing?" But now they added, like, coffee and, like, coffee bar, just really good food, like a European cafe, like, they're open. I think shorter hours since COVID, but yeah, just go hang out, like Wi-Fi, people watch. It's great. And so when my friends come back, we still go there. It's still our favorite spot.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the West Loop really is. I mean, this isn't going to be a, groundbreaking news to anybody listening, but yeah, it really is crazy as how even in the time that I've lived here, 8 or 9 years,
Yeah.
I was looking into a place for a client who's thinking about selling his place in the West Loop, and I was looking up just his place when he bought it,
Yeah.
not even that long ago, like 7 or 8 years ago, compared to
Oh,
now.
yeah.
And like, the first picture is just sort of like the building from the street, but it's of the same angle. And it looks like the first picture was taken in like the old Western days. And then the second picture is taken during like the year 4000. I mean, it's
There
just
was
insane the
nothing
difference.
there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nuts. Because that's where I worked at Soho House over there. I don't know, maybe 5 years ago at this
Hmm.
point. And so that was like walking distance from my old apartment in the Loop. And it was like, I mean, I knew that like the West Loop was a thing, but I don't have a reason to go over there now. So when I, started working over
Yeah.
there, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's completely different.
Yeah.
Like obviously tons of good restaurants. So like, great to go out and eat or like, like Girl and the Goat was right there. We shared an alley with them.
Hmm.
And so that's what I would get out of work early because I was the bread baker for a long time there. And
Hmm.
when you get the Girl on the Go, you just go at 4 o'clock. So I would just go when I got out of work and be like, sit down right away.
Beautiful. Yeah. Just sit at the bar. That's really the only way you can reliably get in at Grill with the Goat, unless you make reservations like 6 months in advance. It's just like if you go and just try to sit at the bar, you usually can.
The last time we
But
went to actually sit down, my partner forgot that he was like, oh, like, let's go. We're going to go to a nice dinner. And he's like, oh, there's this Sunday that has like seats open. He books it. He doesn't realize it's Super Bowl Sunday.
mm,
And like there's no TVs in there.
huh,
And so I'm all excited and then he realizes why and he's like, "Oh man." It's like, "Oh, we're going." So if you ever see a Sunday that's free, beware. But
yeah. Yeah, and you working at the Soho House, you really got the heaviest dose of it because I feel like that's like the epicenter of just the cool factor of West Loop, is the Soho
yeah,
House.
yeah.
Like I feel like all the rest of the coolness of the West Loop is just kind of oozing out of the Soho House. Among other places now, Fulton Market, places, whatever. I guess it doesn't have
Yeah.
a monopoly on coolness anymore, but it's definitely up
There's a lot of
there.
hotels over there now too, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was great for that because there was actually a few different restaurant concepts inside the building. And so, if you want to try something new, you could, you weren't just doing the same stuff all the time. Like if one restaurant has their menu change, you get a few different things. So you kind of always have a rotation
Hmm.
of new stuff. And so yeah, I really liked that job. It was they definitely creative enough for their employees too. Yeah, because you could take like little like mini sessions with other departments. And so like I made a rolling pin
Hmm.
because they actually have like a woodworking shop in the basement. They make a lot of the furniture there. Um, and so anyone who wants to sign up for kind of just some like little, I don't even know if they're classes, but like little sessions or whatever, you could like learn the best way to like make a bed with housekeeping or like you could come in
Hmm.
pastry and like I taught a little class on how to like pipe chocolate on plates. And, when you get like a birthday cake slice at a restaurant and there's
Yeah.
just writing on it.
Okay.
Yeah, like I taught a little session on that. The bartending classes were always really interesting. Think of
Oh, for
how
sure.
you design a cocktail recipe is different from how you would design like a cooking recipe. Like if you're just mixing stuff in a shaker, you want to always put the cheapest ingredients in first. So if you make a mistake, it's less likely to cost more money.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
That
a
makes
little
sense.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it was yeah. So it was fun to be in the area, and it was also like I think they did good for employee engagement as well. Like because I'll go and like learn whatever. I thought it was really fun, but
Hmm.
yeah,
So
but all
then,
the restaurants is definitely fun too because it's not just one menu that's changing. There's like three or four.
yeah, awesome. So you spent a little bit, just a short amount of time in the loop, and then moved up to the kind of the far north side where you would remain for
Yeah, yeah,
until now, basically. So
yeah,
what drew you up that way, and how would you kind of compare to some of the different areas that you've lived over the last whatever 18, 19 years?
yeah. Andersonville was a friend for a little bit, and then I ended up moving in alone. I think I don't know. I was trying to and I was trying to be an adult, I guess, and I was like, "I wanna, like, live by myself." And so I had an apartment in Andersonville by myself for 2 years that I really liked, and then Rogers Park for 2 years, and then I was like, "Okay, but, like, this is kinda boring. I'm 24 or something, like, I wanna have roommates and, like, talk to people, right?" And
Mhm.
so then I moved back to Andersonville with, like, I don't know, the rotating cast of characters apartments that just end up happening, where there's, like, multiple bedrooms and, like, one person moves out, you get a new person on Craigslist, right?
You had a couple of those types of places
I
then.
did, and I got
Yeah.
so lucky because I am still, like, best friends with, I think, like, all but one of the people from any of those places. There was one weirdo, and then everyone else was great. So, out of, like, 10 people, like,
It's a
really
good
good odds
percentage.
for Craigslist.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so, yeah, Andersonville for a few more years, and then yeah, and then North Center, which was all really, like which was all really great because I was working at small places at the time, and so, like, I worked at little cafes in Rogers Park and, like, the Southport corridor as a pastry chef of a restaurant, and so it was easy to get down Clark Street on a bike and get to work. And so it felt very nice to just kinda have to just be in those neighborhoods and kinda have that, like, small feel still without having to, like, have an hour commute or, like, take a train and, "Oh, it's delayed," and all this, just I felt nice to just be able to feel small and cozy, I guess. Yeah.
Time for the Real Estate Stats Corner presented by me, Jake Lyons, real estate advisor here in Chicago with At Properties and my website, thechicagohomesource.com. In this segment, I am going to provide 3 statistics about the Roscoe Village neighborhood that I think give you at least a pretty general sense of what real estate is looking like in the Roscoe Village area currently and what people are willing to pay to live in Roscoe Village. I think that, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think that real estate is super relevant to any conversation about any neighborhood because, after all, what really is a neighborhood without real estate? The information provided here is courtesy of InfoSparks and Rentometer. So, that all being said, the 3 stats that I'm going to present are the median sales prices of 2 bed condos, of single family detached houses of at least 3 bedrooms, and 2 bed rental apartments. All right. So the first one up is the median sales price of 2 bed condos, excuse me, in Roscoe Village, which as of January of 2024, the most recent data that I have access to as of the time that I'm recording this is $425,000. Median sales price, 2 bed condos, Roscoe Village, 50% sold for more, 50% sold for less. That is the median sales price. For a house of at least 3 bedrooms in Roscoe Village, the median sales price is, let's go ahead and just round that up. We can do that, I think, to 1.5 million. So I'll do 1.46 million, whatever. 1.1 million. I think we're safe to go ahead and call it at that for a house in Roscoe Village. And if you are looking to rent a 2 bed apartment in the Roscoe Village neighborhood, that will set you back at a median of $2,200. So lots more variables than just the median sales price. Obviously, there's a lot more in the weeds that we can get if you want. But in the meantime, if you want to explore what's for sale or rent in the market in Roscoe Village right now, you can go to thechicagohomesource.com. That's good for Roscoe Village or anywhere in the Chicago area. And that link can also be found in the show notes. What do you think your secret was to continuously finding quality roommates, like in 2 different places too? So like when somebody moved out, what was the process? Was it the landlords putting the listing up, or is it you guys who's
It was
vetting the
us.
people coming in?
It was
Okay.
us. Yeah. So when I first got into the roommate situation in Andersonville, it was really funny because everyone at work was like, because I already lived alone, and so I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna resign my lease." Kinda talking to my coworkers, and they're like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "Oh, like, I found some listings on Craigslist." And they're like, "You're gonna hate it. Don't do that. It's a terrible idea." And I was like, "No, I'm gonna do it." And so this was like a tiny, tiny bedroom, pretty much across the street from Hop Leaf before they expanded
Hmm.
to the southern. space. I think used to be like a wine shop. I think they still owned it, but it was Hop Leaf was just one building. And so I like applied and whatever, and then like wanted to like meet up. And I was like, okay, this bedroom is like tiny. Like, so if I don't like these people, like I'm in like a 9 foot square box. Like this has to,
Hmm.
you know. And so went and saw the place, and it was like cool because there was a whole back porch that I could put all my like baking stuff on. So I wasn't like totally taking over the kitchen. And then I was like, okay, but like let's go out for a drink and make sure that like we can all hang out, right? And so we did that, and then I think they saw a few other people and were like, no, like you're the only one who like actually like wanted to hang out. And I was like, okay, cool, great. And so I ended up getting that space. And then when we found new people, actually we ended up like putting up an ad on Craigslist, and then the person ended up moving in never saw the room she was supposed to move into because we were all just like talking and chatting and like got along too well. So then she left and then emailed us later and was like, "So I never saw the room. Can you send me some photos?" And I was like, "I guess that's a good sign, right?" Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And then in North Center, how did we find? In North Center, I think I had part in finding like one of the roommates. Like we all just met and hung out a little bit. And then when we had to find another one, I wasn't there. Like I was working like a night shift or I was working weird hours. And so I was like, look, I've lived with you guys long enough. Like I trust whoever you pick. And they're like, what? I was like, it's gonna be fine, whatever. And so they picked a person, and I didn't meet him until like a week later after he moved in because I had such a strange schedule that I was like, oh, new person, okay, whatever. There were four of us in that house, so and it was big. We had like a floor and a half, so it was. I think key is having enough space that you're not all
Yeah.
like we
Multiple
could each be
multiple
in a room that
bathrooms.
wasn't our bedroom and not be in the same room, so we could each have like space, you know. So I think that was key.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was good to feel each other's personalities out too. Because I mean, I feel like a lot of people might have been like, oh, this she wants to hang out and stuff. No, we don't want that.
Yeah,
We just want
yeah,
somebody to come in, not say anything, just kind of keep to themselves. Like I can definitely see that, people actually preferring that. So yeah, the
yeah.
fact that you actually came a good. Plus, I mean, who doesn't want to have a baker in the place? That
I
sounds
think I
great.
endeared myself. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I
Place is
know
gonna
that
smell good all the time. Is this gonna be random treats laying around? Like, yeah, sounds great.
in Andersonville, that was actually the top layer was one of my friends. The first wedding cake I ever made was one of the roommates there, which she rudely moved out to like now they're married and have a kid. That's why she moved out. And she moved like 2 blocks away. It was kind of funny. But yeah, I made some it was like a Nutella mousse cake. It's really good. And I had like left I think I made it for her birthday, but then I wasn't there for the party because I worked weird hours. And so I just like left it in the freezer and told her how to like unmold it or whatever. And I came home at like midnight or something. And we're like in our early 20s. Everyone's just hammered, house party.
Yep.
And everyone's like, "Did you make this cake?" And was just like super excited. And so she would always request that. And that was actually the top layer. A version of that was a top layer of her wedding cake so that her and her husband could have that as their like take home or whatever. So
Love it. You mentioned very briefly earlier, but something that I definitely want to explore with you quite a bit, and that is, I think you are an expert on bicycling in Chicago. So would
I
that be fair to say?
I'm an expert, but yeah, I do it. we have
You're as much of an expert as anyone I know. Yeah, let's show it. Is that
uh
Shadow Facts, right? That's
That's
the name.
Shadow Facts. Yeah, Fatty Wumpkin is outside right now. You should put him in the basement, but he's already out there. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're at a point where you're naming your bicycles, I think that you're pretty elite when it comes
that's
to.
the qualification to get into our bike gang is your bike has to have a name. So yeah,
You have a bike gang, and you're
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to play down that you're not an expert. Come on. So, I mean, I know a lot of people will probably, look at Chicago as a place that, yeah, I don't have to have a car. I can do public transit and whatnot. And obviously, those things are true. But it's also a very bikeable city, or
Yeah.
is it? Like, what is this your experience of being somebody who bikes, whatever the verb is, a lot?
Um, yeah. I think that there's actually a lot of new lanes going in. They just put some new ones on Belmont that over here that are protected, which is always good to see. I think we're getting a lot more infrastructure. I know that I really would have liked the ones that are on Clark now. When I lived up in Rogers Park, I would like bike down to Andersonville, and that would, or did I bike? I don't know. It's always kind of sketchy going on Clark there because it's 2 lanes, and there was like a shared lane that people are always like trying to get to Lakeshore Drive there, like where Hollywood meets, and it was a little sketch. But I think that's what's super helpful actually. Like smartphones will, I just always have the overlay on to like show you where like popular lanes are. And so I think that's like a super useful feature that like if you don't know where to start there at least. Like
So what do you mean? Like in Google Maps, there's an overlay of
yeah,
bicycle friendly lanes and streets. Okay,
yeah, yeah. And
cool.
I think there's like solid or dash lines depending on if it's a like protected lane or a shared lane. And
Hmm.
so that'll, when I go to new cities, basically you can just leave that on and it'll show you kind of where, okay, like this area is like really bike friendly or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think that people are just starting out, I would actually suggest just going with someone who kind of knows the ins and outs, and you can just follow someone and like kind of get used to the idea of like cars being next to you or like what to look for, but they're kind of doing all the signaling and you're just mimicking someone. Yeah, my partner doesn't cycle a ton, but we have divvy memberships, which is actually super useful because there'll be times where we're maybe we'll get a cab home but then we don't have to leave our bikes anywhere or we're meeting people or like whatever it is, and so we'll do the divvy memberships, which honestly that's I got that when I worked in the West Loop because there was not parking by Soho House in the West Loop, and so I would park by a divvy station a little further away, and there's like a bike lane down Randolph, and so I would just automatically go to a divvy station, check out a bike, and then maybe I'm a mile away, but that's going to take like 3 minutes on a bike. Like we're not walking
Hmm.
forever, right? And there's a station right in front of Soho. So that's actually why I got a divvy membership, was to beat beat the
Hmm.
parking out there. But yeah,
Divvy, I guess, just for anyone who doesn't know, Divvy is basically like it's just a company that has these rentable bikes on racks that are all
bike
over the
share.
city and just in various locations where you just, yeah, if you have a membership, or you can, I guess, just go in and rent by the minute, by the hour, however you. I personally have never really done the Divvy, but yeah, how would you
Yep.
say that? Is that about right?
Yeah, they're bike share. It's a bike share company.
Bike, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stations around here actually, which is really nice. I don't even know if it's mileage or minutes. I know that there used to be a max of limits and they just raised it a few years ago to 45 from 30 minutes. But yeah, it's a really good option from like, oh, I got off the train and now, I need to
Hmm.
get that last mile or something. Super convenient. Yeah, I think there's
The
a lot
the
of
bikes
good
themselves. Sorry, what?
I think there's a lot of good infrastructure now. I think
Yeah.
that Divvy I think people get, you know, cyclists get annoyed at divvy riders, but like that's the reason that we're getting all this infrastructure, right? Like the more people who are on bikes, the more infrastructure you're
Mm.
gonna get. And so, I think some people try to crap on divvy riders, and I'm like, that's how we get nice things though, more people using them. So the
Mm.
scooters though, I don't like the scooters, but bikes are okay.
No. What is it? What's the thing within the bicyclist community that why are they getting elitist over divvies?
I think a lot of well, there's no good way to kind of like make sure that everyone on a bike knows how to use like the correct hand signals or like wears a helmet or
Okay.
does, you know, I think a lot of drivers will just see a cyclist and be like, "Oh, like, they never follow the rules and whatever." And I think having some divvy riders will just kind of get on and not know what they're doing and
Yeah.
but like use your hand signals, don't wear headphones. I don't understand people who wear headphones when they cycle. Like, don't you want to hear the cars
Hmm.
around you? But
Yeah, one would think.
yeah. That was actually kind of creepy when like all the electric cars came out or they were
Oh
super
yeah,
quiet.
totally.
And
They
as a
sneak up on you.
cyclist, I got scared like a few times because I'm used to trying like, you can hear a car coming behind you. Okay, I can tell that you're here. I
Yep.
look, I don't just swerve over, but like there's times where I would look and I had no idea there was a car there because they didn't make noise for like the first year or two. They have like the e-cars or whatever, the
Hmm.
electric. It was yeah. Now they have like a slight noise, which is good. You can still hear them, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had heard that that was quite a bit of a problem there for a little bit. That which I've even had that as a pedestrian, like
oh yeah, yeah,
Tesla, rolling up on, behind me, and it's just like, oh man, where'd you come from?
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I've never done a divvy because the bikes themselves just look so like just blocky and just not like a good ride at all. And
Eh.
I've also never had like a super compelling reason to do it, but I don't know. Yeah, just if I did, I would look at those bikes and be like, nah, I'm good.
I think it's a good option for like that last mile, you know? Because also once you get a membership, it's like it gets like 120 now, I don't know, for the year, but like it's the kind of thing where like I would never pay $3 for that ride.
Hmm.
But once you pay the membership, then it's free, right? So
Totally.
once it's free,
I
you're like,
have
yeah,
done
that's a great
the
deal.
right. It's baked in now. You have to use it.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have done the e-scooters a couple times, just not even to be practical because I can drive to wherever I'm going or whatever, like way better and easier. But I don't know. I saw a couple of them and I was just like, I just want to try this and just go on a little cruise, basically, like find some excuse, go. I think my wife Emma needed a hammer at one point, so I was like, you know what, this is a great excuse. I'm just gonna see what these e-scooters are like and just scoot my way on down to the Home Depot real quick. And
I've never
they're
done one of those.
cool. You haven't?
No. Yeah, how was it?
I mean, they're fun, but they're definitely not like a cost-effective option. Like I think it's more expensive than if I had just taken an actual Uber to go there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I ended up, the Home Depot, whatever, is like a mile and a half away. I think I ended up paying like $13 or something like that to
Oh,
to scoot.
wow.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's not that cheap. I mean, it's yeah, like you were saying, it's like a decent last mile, last few block kind of option or something like that. If you
Yeah.
just like get off the train and you happen to see one of the e-scooters just like, in some bush somewhere as they do, and you're like, you know what? Yeah, I will do this e-scooter real quick. But yeah, it's just something to do that's a little bit of fun, I think, but it's not like I wouldn't have it in my like everyday repertoire of, you know,
Yeah.
options personally.
I think I think that was an Instagram account, or maybe it still is, of just like of the bikes or the scooters just in like the weirdest places, or like, oh yeah,
Just
I locked it up here
chaos.
in this tree or whatever, like which isn't technically like not allowed, but like
Yeah, it's chaos out there. Well, you know what? We're an hour into this. Let's start talking about the neighborhood that you live in now. The
yeah.
whatchamacallit, Roscoe
Roscoe
Village.
Village.
Yeah, so what do you like about Roscoe? What brought you there? I mean, Roscoe, you've basically been in that neighborhood for like Roscoe Village is North Center still, but it's just kind of like a subset of it. But yeah, what are you liking about that?
Well, we kind of lucked into our apartment. Our sister-in-law used to live here and told us about it because her friends lived here after she did, and she knew they were moving, and she was like, "You guys, like this apartment," and we're like, "Okay." So we love it because we're right on Roscoe actually, and so but somehow we have a bedroom. We have like a one plus. Bedroom is a strong word for the room that I'm in right now, but the yeah, like we have a yard out back, so we have like a little patio set, and we can have dogs over, and so I feel like we got real lucky there. But also, yeah, we can walk to anywhere we want to go. We're pretty close to some grocery stores and also like all the restaurants right here too. There's
Yeah,
restaurants, there's little shops, there's excuse me. Yeah, right off two bike lanes. Like there's a lane in front of the house. There's the Damon lane. We don't do buses too much, but also we're pretty close to the Brown line for how often we take it. It's like maybe a 10-minute walk to get on at Paulina if we need to get downtown or something. Because my partner does go into the office, like they're hybrid or whatever. So if he needs to go in, it's still easy to get there. But we're close to a bunch of other good neighborhoods too. Like a lot of friends are still in Andersonville, and yeah, it's easy to get anywhere from here, I
yeah,
feel like. Yeah,
definitely.
they always have parking right out front, which I don't know. I'll take. I
Hmm.
think all of our neighbors have like garages, and so that leaves the street spots for us. But
Yeah,
yeah, and it's we're on a little strip here where there's just lots of small independent businesses. And so, when we
hmm,
go in, like we've been here long enough that we know, the bartenders know us, and oh, like my partner actually finally they remember his sushi order exactly at the place down the street. So he'll walk in and they're
yeah.
like the same thing and they'll just put in the order. I think
What's
that's
the
one of the
place?
great things.
Let's do some shout outs. What are
Oh,
some of these
uh
local businesses?
Hot Walks knows his order. Yeah, that's a great lunch spot. That's one of our we try to do like day date Mondays. That's when we're both typically free. And so we'll go to lunch together, and we usually either end up at Roost for chicken or Hot Walks for I get like rice or noodles, but he gets sushi. Like,
Roost is so good. Roost
yeah,
is fire. Love that place.
I
Yeah.
they weren't that far from my North Center place. They were down Irving, but because they were like on Irving, it was like kind of awkward. Like we'd go past it a lot, but we wouldn't like stop there because if there wasn't parking right there or whatever. Now we just walk over because they switched locations like 2 years ago maybe. So that's cool. Yeah, they also have, there's lots of neighborhood events. Retro and Roscoe is right here, so we basically have like a street fair, like block party, like
Yep.
literally outside. They do, I don't know if they're calling it now. They've changed the name a few times, but where they'll close down a block during the right at Damon and just have like a little streetery area that they were doing during the pandemic where there's
Hmm.
like extra outdoor seating and maybe they'll have like a yoga class or something. A little bike corral for kids. Yeah, I feel like there's always events kind of going on in the neighborhood and all the businesses yeah, like super, yeah, everyone participates. I feel like all the businesses like know each other and yeah, it just feels cozy.
Yeah. Nice. Has there been anything about Roscoe Village since you've lived there that has surprised you, or maybe like a misconception about it that you found since you've lived there, or maybe before you lived there?
We were super surprised that now it's called Bakehouse, the space. They've been there, I think probably a little bit before Roost. I think about 2 years. That's a coffee shop and I want to say Venezuelan, but that not might not be right. But they have really good like stuffed. It was like a cheese balls. Their cheese balls are so good. I forget the name of them. And that had been like a few different like kind of pastry shops when we first moved in. It was like an ice cream place. It was a cupcake place. It had just been like rotating and rotating. There's a Starbucks kind of nearby, and like I'll go to Starbucks, whatever. But I'm like, how is there
Mhm.
not like a coffee shop in this neighborhood? What
Yeah.
is going on? And so finally Bakehouse is there and they stuck, I think. So yeah, they've been there for like 2 years. And we actually saw them they had a booth at Chris Kindle Market too at Wrigleyville. So I was like, okay, I think they're staying. So we're happy about that. And we were like so surprised because when I first moved here, I went to get coffee with a friend and there was a Starbucks on Belmont. There's the one over by Lane Tech, and then there was the one here on Roscoe. And those are the three closest coffee shops. And I'm like, how? How? um,
It does seem like a place that would just be just like crawling with coffee shops.
Yeah, yeah. Pilates and coffee is right here, and they're really good. Get their lumberjack latte, a little bit of maple syrup in there. But they close at noon, and I think like 1 on the weekends. So if you're like me and you sleep till 10, then there's a short window to get over there. But yeah, I'm happy that's there. That was shocking. I can't really I think basically it's kind of what we expected. We're pretty close to Lane Tech and Audubon. Those are really good schools, so it's lots of families.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just all the shopping that's right around there. Like even, obviously Roscoe Village itself has all kind of like the little more mom and pop type of local businesses and things, but you go right around the corner and it's like you kind of feel like you're in the suburbs all of a sudden, like all the kind of like big box stores, but like not in a bad way. Like, you got like your Costco and big
Yeah.
groceries, Mariano's, like Jewels right there and all that kind of stuff. And you keep going down, there's like Best Buy, there's it's all the things, like you really
Yeah,
don't
we're
really
not
feel
too
like
far
you're
from
in Chicago
anything.
anymore almost. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not too far from anything. If you like 10 minutes any direction, you can get whatever you want. But I do like forget sometimes where I've parked my car because like unless I'm going to a market, like I don't need to use it. So I'm like, I'll go outside and I'll just be like standing. I'll be like hitting the beeper. I'm like, I guess I'm around the corner. I don't know. Like we don't
Hmm.
yeah, we don't really need to go very far, which is great.
Yeah. So if someone were to visit Roscoe Village for just one day,
Mm.
what would you say is what's the most ideal way to spend that day?
Ooh, okay.
Probably lots of food is going to be involved.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like the right order.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because Bakehouse is open like kind of late. So we would probably go there, but we wouldn't go there first.
Hmm.
Okay. Probably okay, so Lucy's or Kitchen. Lucy's or Kitchen for breakfast. Lucy's is it's like a vegetarian cafe that I didn't realize was like vegetarian the first time that we went. Really, really tasty like breakfast options and really good pizza. We had like little flatbread pizzas that were super good. And I love their potatoes. Get their potatoes. That is super tasty. Kitchen is fun just because it's like unique decor and like really hefty portions. We always get like a side of candied bacon, which is maybe why we're always too full after we go there. But one of those for breakfast. Because Kitchen also has a really nice like back patio that gets covered. So if it's like kind of that shoulder season, you can still go there and it'll be like tolerable. One of those. We'd probably go like like a park maybe. There's Hamlin Park right over here.
Mhm.
That was really nice during the pandemic. It was like a nice like outdoor meetup spot. People would have like hammocks out. There's like dogs running around. Hang out there. We have like some lawn games. So we have like a bocce ball set and can jam. It's like a frisbee game. You do some outside stuff. Probably like a little lunch snack or something would be bakehouse then. And then I think we'd have to go to like kind of a more divey place at the end of the day for dinner, and that would be Four Moon because they have no business having like food as good as they do. So Monday we would get the chicken and dumpling special, but you have to call first because they run out.
Now
Like
we're getting to it. Now we're getting into those little gritty details that only a true resident would know. I love that.
that's how I get suckered into watching Monday Night Football is because there's chicken and dumplings at Four Moon. And
Okay.
so that is it. But like before before 8 o'clock, like 7:30 is kind of you gotta get there before then. I mean, they're like little hidden things. I guess maybe darts at like Reveler on the way home. That's like on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that maybe there's just not any in specifically Roscoe Village, which was the question. So fair enough, but I'm surprised there hasn't been too many mentions of breweries yet.
They that was what was great about our North Center place is we were like right down the street, literally a few blocks away from Dovetail and Beguile. And that actually is probably what we miss the most about living in Roscoe is Metropolitan was close, but now they're not there anymore. They don't exist. And so I guess, yeah, breweries would be the thing. Because, yeah, Dovetail, I like German beer a lot more than my partner. And so he would always want to go to Beguile because that's like IPAs all day. And I would
Hmm.
want a Vienna lager from Dovetail. And so we'd have to, one of them was open an hour later than the other. I forget which way it was. I think Dovetail was open an hour later. And so we would do that a lot. Like go get one at Dovetail and then go the block to the other one. And yeah, that's the thing we don't have. Although I don't know what's going to go into where Metropolitan was. I'm hoping it's a brewery. There's a distillery over there now, and they're really good actually. They have really good
Hmm.
cocktails at Judson and Moore, which is a little bit off the beaten path over there, but they're doing really good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, I ended up going
So if
there.
you're
I ended up going there for a artisan grain collaborative event. The farm I get my flowers from, Janie's Mill, downstate Illinois. They well, downstate might be a strong word. South of here, they Judson and Moore uses their grains for their like whiskeys and things, and so I actually that's the thing I want to do is I want to try to make a sourdough with like the same grain bill as their whiskey and bread for because I think that'd be fun. But that was the first time I went there, and it was it's so close to us. Like we could walk there. And I think in my brain, like anything across Western is like too far, which is not true, but it's like across Western and across Belmont, which is like just too much, apparently.
yeah,
Um,
it might as well be like in Asia somewhere.
it's it's like an 8 minute walk. But yeah, we went there for like a pop-up event, and so they had like a bunch of specialty cocktails there, and they were super tasty. And it's like cool little like barrel rooms you can go. Like they have like cozy chairs in there, and there's just like all the stacks of barrels in there, and just really good cocktails that we need to go back. But
So if you were to construct the perfect day of just breweries.
so now there's like the river path that is I don't know how far north it goes, what it connects to yet. To Montrose now. Well, we're down Metropolitan, and we're down Empirical, and Twisted Hippo is in the West Loop now. Normally I would try to connect all those, but probably just down Ravenswood, I guess, like Malt Row. That would give you Beguile, Dovetail, and Cultivate. I guess Koval would be there too if you want to stop for some. I like their gin.
Row. That's what it's called, Malt Row.
Yeah. hmm
That's cool.
We have a
I
few
never
events
heard
a
that
year, I
before.
think.
So
Yeah.
okay. So what constitutes Malt Row?
That is basically like the industrial corridor along Ravenswood where the metro tracks are.
Hmm.
I think just that just lent itself to a lot of the large equipment you need for brewing or distilling. And so,
That's cool. I know like Cobal's
yeah,
over there.
yeah, and their second space, because another brewer, I think it closed already, but went into the old Koval space. And their stuff was really good, and they had a really cute Great Dane puppy, and I'm sad that they're not there anymore. I think that was like something artifact, urban, I don't know what it was called. But the beer was good, and they had a cute dog. Yeah, so yeah, that's called Malt Row. I expect that there'll be some new stuff popping up over there, but probably do like a little North Center vibe, because you could do Beguile and Dovetail, hit Cultivate, maybe go up to Half Acre and Spiteful, over in like I guess that's Bowmanville, whatever,
Bowmanville.
kind of
Yep.
like
Yep.
behind or west of Andersonville, Bowmanville. Yeah,
I missed the half acre when it used to be right there on Lincoln and North Center. That place was pretty cool.
yeah. It's
Then since
Hot
it
Butcher.
moved.
It's Hot Butcher now. Yeah, which is good. We went there. That was actually one of the places we divvied most recently. It was like it's not that far, but we're probably gonna want to get like an Uber home, so we divvied over there.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that would be enough. I think like that six
That's enough.
loop
Yeah.
there is good. Yeah, yeah. And then just take Damon home, then we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. By the time you get to the fifth or sixth stop on that, you're not even tasting anything anymore. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, especially yeah, the Bike and Brew group we used to do. Metra actually promotes this because they'll run extra trains out to some of the suburbs, I think, on certain weekends that have like breweries and restaurants near stops. And so the idea is that you like ride your bike out and then you get the the metro back to the city. And so we used to do okay, like it's 50 miles out to like Penrose or wherever, and then we drink a bunch there, and then we're right next to a train station, and you can like drink some water and sober up a little bit on the metro on the way back in the city. So that was a thing we did like probably 4 or 5 times a few years ago. It was a good bike and brew activity.
Hmm.
Solemn Oath out in Naperville. You could take the Prairie Path out there. And then there's a really good taco place right next to the metro there, which is great because then you could eat and drink on the metro. So we would just get like train
Hmm.
snacks on the way home. It was fun. But
Nice. I've still never been on a metro.
really?
Never had a reason to. If I'm going to the suburbs, I'm driving. you know.
Yeah. I mean, you get to Milwaukee that way, you know?
That's yeah, you know what, and we actually do get to Milwaukee a couple times, like 2 or 3 times a year for various things. So like one of my that's like our little cheat code is like if there's ever a big concert or something like that coming through Chicago,
Yeah.
they're probably going to Milwaukee too, and it's probably going to be like 40% cheaper. So
Yeah.
and Milwaukee's pretty close, and we have some friends and stuff up there. So I like Milwaukee. It's a pretty nice place up there. So
Yeah. We had like a random, I don't even know if it was like there was a random day off or something, but we did a random trip up to Milwaukee just because. And we're like, okay, but that's like hour and a half. Like you would spend that on a normal commute anyhow. Like we just found like a
yeah,
super cheap Airbnb in
yep.
Bay something neighborhood that was like pretty close to some breweries and like some little like divey cocktail places that were good. But it was like, yeah, whatever. Like,
Hmm.
drive an hour, get an Airbnb, and then kind of go to some new places. Yeah, some friends up there. I just don't think of it. Like you drive an hour to the
Yep.
suburbs and you're like, that's totally normal. But like once again, the state line makes it hard or something. I don't know.
Right. It's easier to get to Milwaukee than it is a lot of the suburbs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So we can start to bring things in a little bit here. So bottom line, just in summary, who would you say that Roscoe Village is most ideal for? Like, why should somebody want to live in? Why should somebody want to live in Chicago in general, and then from there, why Roscoe Village?
I think Chicago in general I think the best part about it is that you kind of, if you find your right neighborhood, which is key, but if you find your right neighborhood, you end up kind of just like having your little spots, it can end up feeling very small and you have like your little routine or whatever. And it's not, sometimes people think Chicago and they think of like the loop and kind of all this like hustle
Yep,
and bustle, but
just
it's
the
not all.
skyline, the part that has the skyline. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. But that's like fun to go do
yeah.
sometimes, right? But that was the thing. Like I've lived here long enough now that anyone who's come to visit has kind of already done like all the we got a picture with the bean and we did all this stuff.
Hmm.
That then it's like okay, but here's like what life is actually like, or like what the places people
Hmm.
actually go. So I think you would come here because you want all the amenities of a big city, but you can kind of choose when to want some of those things, to find your neighborhood. Roscoe Village, I would say it's definitely like an older crowd. Like you're close to Wrigleyville if that's like your thing, but you should go do that and then move over here. I would say that it's you kind of have your coffee shops and like your restaurants with patios, and it's a little more chill, a little slower pace, which, you know, as I get older, I appreciate that it's not always super loud out and you don't always hear. Yeah, because I lived next to Hop Leaf for a while, which was always really entertaining at closing time, right? And then had some other like quieter places, and I always kind of preferred the little tucked away on the side street.
Hmm.
Sometimes is nice.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah. And And
Yeah,
to
I
your
think
point,
it's
you're still close enough
finding your
that
spot, and you also have to stay for more than a year. Like, you can't move here in the winter and think that you're gonna like it right away, it's not gonna work. You need to stay for a full
sure.
summer. You gotta stay for a full summer or it doesn't count.
Yeah. That's good. It's good notes, all of it. And yeah, even to the point of it being quiet, but you're still one or two train stops away or a 10-minute bike ride away from all the craziness and chaos that you can handle if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. Cool. All right. I think we nailed it on the neighborhood portion of this. Is there anything, before I hit stop recording here, are there anything else that you would want to highlight or promote? I'm definitely going to have Rebecca's Confections in the show notes so everyone can find her there. Maybe so if there's any kind of social media or any other ways to get a hold of you, or yeah, just anything else, any other organizations or anything else that you want to highlight. If not, that's fine.
No, I don't think so, yeah.
All right. Rebecca, thank you so much for lending your time here and educating our audience about Roscoe Village and the culinary scene and biking and beers and all kinds of other stuff that we got into. Dogs. Sure,
All
everybody
the
will
best
love it.
things.
So, all the best things. Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.